Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome, everyone. Good Monday morning. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Hope all of you are, doing just fine this morning. And, gosh, a lot of just developing news over the weekend since Friday. The headlines I've noticed. I'm always noticing the headlines and just the slightest little word that on one hand can completely change the impression of what's been going on. But then if you point it out, people could be, oh, that's nitpicking. I mean, technically, that's, and I've noticed like all of these headlines regarding Trump telling Republicans, just go ahead and vote for this resolution calling for the release of all of these files as a like a complete reversal. And I like this is CNBC. Trump reverses stance on Epstein records, presses Republicans to support release. The AP, their open line in their piece, President Trump said House Republicans should vote to release the files in the Jeffrey Epstein case, a startling reversal after previously fighting the proposal as a growing number of those in his own party supported it. And I was thinking to myself, now I remember, because talking about this, and I just recall discussions from Trump saying that this is a waste of time, saying that Republicans needed to focus on the successes that they had achieved, and that there were a number of other things, particularly this was budget. This really hit its peak when Republicans in the House were working on new budgets and so forth, and there was the Doge stuff going on, and you had Trump really pressing House Republicans to get things done. And then you had Pam Bondi come out and just, in the minds of many people, completely from a marketing or messaging standpoint, it's probably a better term to use, bungling the whole Epstein thing, giving the Democrats the ability to falsely parade around the Epstein situation as something that it's not. And so all of these things going on during this period of time, and Trump was like, this is ridiculous. And I remember the very first conversation that we had here regarding it. Trump was in the Oval Office, I believe it was, and it was one of his many huge announcements. I don't know if it was a trade deal or if it was something that was big. And he was asked, what do you think about the Republicans and this effort by Massey specifically in order to force a release of the files? And he was like, this is ridiculous. There's nothing. Why do you keep bringing up Epstein? Noting that he's dead already, that's done and over with. Now, when it came to the issue itself, my position had been, well, it's not really about Epstein at this point. I mean, yes, there are still people that are very curious about the death and the mysterious circumstances surrounding that. But more, for a lot of people, more importantly, it's what about all these people that, were buying these girls to rape? What about that? That's still a big thing for a lot of people. And I noted at the time, I think I understand where Trump is coming from. This is becoming an annoyance to him because he's doing all of these, big things, and this is what he gets asked about. And he's telling Republicans, why are you focusing on that stuff? Mike Johnson in the House, just start getting stuff done that has meaning. If you read these headlines, however, it makes it sound as if Trump was telling Republicans, don't release the files, keep them hidden. That these files should never be released, these files need to be kept hidden away from the public. And I thought, well, maybe I'm missing. Maybe he even at some point said something that could be perhaps misunderstood at this, because what we also know is all this time, the Department of Justice under Trump, it was going before judges, trying to have grand jury transcript revealed, a number of these different areas in which much of this information was being kept under wraps, and it's 2 or 3 different cases. An Obama-appointed judge said, no, I'm not going to release this information. That combined with the fact that the Trump administration had turned over tens of thousands of documents to Congress. And so I'm thinking to myself, I don't believe Trump was ever saying, do not do that. Like I said, Trump is a guy that doesn't believe in wasting time, and he believes in prioritizing things that are significant, particularly when it comes to his job and getting America back on track, and not that the Epstein situation wasn't significant, but when Trump is getting these meaningful things done, and these are the questions that he's being asked at events in which clearly he's wanting the message to be about the successes. I understood his frustration, but that's just as best I remember, and going back and looking, that was the situation, the scenario. And I think it's fair to say, however, when you read these headlines that Trump is reversing his position on releasing the records, I don't consider it a reversal. I consider it a definite shift of priority, of perspective, of messaging. But to me, reversal means you're doing the opposite. You're reversing. So in other words, if you are saying, yes, this should be the House, just go ahead and release these things, that is, if you're to say, what is the reverse of that? Well, the reverse is telling them to keep it covered up. Publicly telling them, don't ever release these, keep it hidden secret from the public. And I don't believe that was the position of the White House. Now, like I said, there may have been some statement somewhere in which Trump did say something along those lines, but I went through several, like the CNBC story, looking for any sort of quote in it. Again, the headline is Trump reverses stance on Epstein records, presses Republicans to support release. But I couldn't find where they are citing Trump telling Republicans at any point, do not release the records. Again, the AP story saying that this is a startling reversal. I looked through the entire story and I see that they're quoting him in the past on this, saying, quote, well, in his postings, I don't care. All I care about is that Republicans get back on point. Criticizing Republicans for being off focus. And a few Republicans in particular, Marjorie Taylor Greene is, now becoming one of those individuals. But Thomas Massie at the time was the big one, and his frustration that was drawing attention away from the successes and saying, get back on point. This is a ridiculous focus to focus on. And like I said, some people may see it as nitpicking. Like, well, yes, maybe technically it isn't a reversal, but it is a change in position, and pajamas. This is how I gauge it. When you have headlines of that nature, or you have opening paragraphs using a term like reversal, and then you ask people who read the headlines, you ask people to, who read the stories, all right, so based off of the opening of the story or the headline, what was Trump's position before? And if they infer because of the headline, well, I guess it was for them to vote against releasing it. That's not accurate. And if your point is to have information in print or on television or radio or any outlet for the viewer, the reader, the listener to have the most accurate understanding of what is going on, including context as possible, that sort of slight change in verbiage seems to fail. Now, of course, last week, one of the things that the Democrats did hilariously, out of the, 20,000 pages of information, They selectively released a few with redacted information to make it appear as if Epstein was implicating Donald Trump. Now, of course, what we've learned is the opposite is true. And I want to play audio coming up here. We're going to get weather update and traffic from author Barry Levine, and he's got a new book coming out. Or perhaps it's already out. It's called The Spider Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is sort of his thing. And based off of all the information he has, this, particularly some of the emails that were released by Democrats, no, this is an exoneration. By the way, this isn't some massive Trump defender. This is a guy who's won awards from the Huffington Post in the past. So we've got all that coming up. Oh, you want to do weather?
Sure.
You got weather ready for us?
I do. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers throughout the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high near 70.
Well, okay, so last week, this is just for context, not catch-up work, but as you know, the Democrats, they lost the government shutdown thing. They failed at keeping it shut down, which I'm still trying to figure out what you anti-Trump people were wanting here. I mean, I was looking back at some photos of these No Kings protesters, the 2025 conspiracy theory protesters, and they're like literally demanding that Trump reopened the government. And so eventually, of course, he's not king, as you've seemingly found a lot of great confusion in. But the Democrats did go ahead and they blocked those other Democrats trying to keep the government shut down, voted with Republicans to reopen it, and now they're ticked off. They're mad. Like, what is... it's just, can you imagine being a Democrat right now? Your head must be spinning. Like, what do you want us to do? You're angry, you're ticked off because people aren't getting their benefits. You're pitching a fit over this. Yet now when we went ahead and we joined Republicans in reopening it, now you're mad that we did that? What are we supposed to do? This is what happens when you don't have an anchored moral compass and you don't have goals that are anchored in a constant moral compass. And instead, it's all based off about Trump. And so on one hand, you blame Trump for everything because he's president, which would be government shutdown. So then what is your ultimate goal there? Your ultimate goal is, well, we have to reopen the government because it's shut down, and so that must be Trump's fault. Well, then, of course, the only way that can happen is for Democrats to vote with Republicans in order to do it, and that is something Trump wanted, and so all of a sudden you're mad that it was done. Because, oh, wait a minute, Trump wanted this to happen? What a conflicting world. I'm telling you what is happening in the Democrat Party right now. I'm going to get back to this Epstein thing. It's like a guy. Let me tell you the reason that this works in my mind is because I used to have a roommate, and this is this guy. I had a roommate who juggled. I think he was always juggling numerous girls at once. And if he ever had just one girlfriend, that was pretty short-lived. And not because he would go without for long periods of time. He would have several. And I remember one of them was our other roommate. So we lived in this huge house. We were all radio people. We lived in just this massive house together. And what the one of the roommates, this girl, was one of them. Then there are these two others. And one day, the two that weren't the roommates, I don't know how it was, they figured out what was going on, and they both show up at the house wanting to talk to him. And he yelled up in the back room and said, tell him I'm not here. I was like, they know you're here. I said, I'm not coming out anyway. So then the other third roommate gets in, and they're all just sitting there demanding answers. And the Democrat Party is a party in which it has tried to have a number of girlfriends at once. And some of that is political ideology. Some of it is, just the category of LGBTQ over here, and then women over here, and then you've got, people of color over here. And yeah, for a period of time, you can juggle that stuff, but at some point it comes to a head. At some point you have this conflict. And two of the girlfriends, ideologically speaking, that the Democrat Party were juggling there, and I wouldn't even say juggling, but for the longest time had the main girlfriend, or maybe even the wife, and that was the normal Democrat voter, what we would call, the person that just really genuinely, didn't think of opposition as Hitler and want them killed, but felt that the policies of the Democrat Party were successful policies that were going to help the working person. And then they had the side piece. The side piece was that it was the nut job voter. The voter who believed in giving sex change operations to kids. The voter who believed you should murder political opposition. The voter that was anti-Semitic. The voter that was just a believer that you shouldn't reach across the aisle. But all of a sudden, that girlfriend, that side piece that maybe once a month that the Democrat Party got together with, all of a sudden began working her way in, showing up at your workplace, following you around. You're out having dinner with your wife for your anniversary, and all of a sudden she shows up half drunk, screaming and yelling, and you just can't shake her. She's taken over. And your wife's like, you better get rid of that chick. Like, I've been trying. She just shows up. I can't do anything. Can't do anything about it. She just keeps showing up. This is what's happening with the Democrat Party right now. And that's how you end up with these nut job voters that stand on the side of the road, demanding on one hand that, Trump reopen the government. We got to reopen the government. Stop denying all these people their benefits. And then the minute the Democrats say, okay, we'll vote to reopen the government because they were the block to it, then some of those same people are pitching a fit and they're angry at the Democrats. We got to get rid of those. What do we do about these Democrats that reopen the government? You're nuts. Now, coming up, we've got the audio from the author of this book regarding Jeffrey Epstein. The book is The Spider Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, not delivering up quite the information that networks like CNN want regarding Donald Trump. Not only is there, according to this author in these interviews, not information that implicates Trump, but it's exculpatory. And that Epstein knew it. So we have that coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda, guess what is underway? Happy Honda Days. Oh, yes, happy Honda Days indeed. Don't miss the model year in clearance. Clearing out them 2025 models. And no payment for 90 days on new vehicles. Yes, 90 days. That means no payments until February of next year. $1,500 sales credit with rates as low as 3.49% on the 25 Honda Pilot. Part of that model year in clearance, as is the Ridgeline 25. $3,000 sales credit, 0.99%. Rates as low. Of course, you've got all the conditions that do apply. And the Honda Accord model year in clearance as low as $329 a month. And there are great leases as well. And pre-owned Honda True Certified Dream Deal event, 1.99% APR. And that is currently underway. So that is just a sampling of some of the incredible deals you can get as you prepare for the holidays. Get in that holiday season, which Everybody already clearly is. I mean, already before we left, there were Christmas trees and things right up.
I
I mean,
know. There were so many Christmas lights, especially in
I,
St. Louis.
yeah. Well, I laughed because even before we left, the day after Halloween, November 1, I'm walking through Walmart and I'm like, oh, they still have a lot of Halloween candy. And I looked and it was in the exact same place as all the Halloween candy, but it was Christmas. It's like I was just swapped one out right the other. And I know we know it. Once upon a time, it wasn't until Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, that's when it all started. And I get kind of torn on it because on one hand, I do really like Christmas and I love the festive nature of it. And when you get down to the actual purpose and reason and recognition of what Christmas is, as a Christian, that's important to me. And so I'm like, hey, of all the things in life that people focus on that are not joyful, that are negative, should we really be upset if Christmas is something that increasingly people decide to spread out over a long period of time, particularly those who really truly recognize the quote reason for the season. But then it does at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it takes a little bit of the specialness out of it. It's that McRib effect where the
Yep.
McRib,
I'm with you.
yeah. So so that's I guess I just don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. Anyhow, we've got traffic right now. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers through the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 70.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Fact, snow in November happens because people decorate for Christmas prematurely. Stop it.
You know what? I believe it. I believe it.
Incidentally, and I don't know, I don't think we mentioned it when we were in Mexico, but neither headed there or coming back do we have any travel disruptions because of air traffic control.
Everything was really smooth.
And the flights were really, really smooth. I thought just getting there, taking off, and even my aunt, she was like, I was really pleased with the flight and how just smooth it was. What a great flight it was.
I know. And we actually got home 15 minutes earlier on the way back.
Yeah, but of course there clearly were those concerns about potential holdups or hiccups, and St. Louis wasn't on one of those maps anyhow, but of airports that were going to be requested to scale back staffing. But yeah, in fact, going through TSA was so fast, going there and coming back, and on a mid-morning Sunday, maybe that's not uncommon, but it took maybe 2 minutes at most for us to go. It was actually the fastest going through security that I can recall ever happening. So yeah, we were really fortunate in that travel, I would say.
I agree. Yeah, everything went really smooth, and I like it.
Okay, let's see. Sarah, are you sure all of the lights in St. Louis weren't gunshots?
Pretty sure.
And another texting in, there is 12 days of Christmas, none of which are in November. This is true. This is true. Okay, so the Epstein stuff. Democrats selectively, as always, they love to selectively release things. And part of what they selectively released were the emails, text messages, one of the two forms of communication, in which Epstein referred to Trump as the dog that hasn't barked. And what does this mean? Well, we kind of know what that means. Now, if you redact things like a name that's referenced as a girl who, evidently referenced Trump or something, and spent time with Trump, all of these things are redacted. Well, so Republicans respond by, you redact, or you release, 3, 4, 5 pages of documents redacted. We will see that with 20,000 pages, and here's lots of unredacted stuff. And, of course, immediately what we learned is the reason the Democrats redacted the name was because it's somebody who already had been very, very clear. It's the girl who had written a book about being a victim, that Trump was never anywhere doing anything wrong. Just stop for a moment and think about the depraved nature of the Democrat Party, literally using sex victims to try to go after political opponents. To say that, we care so much about justice, we care so much about these victims, that is a demonstration that, and I've argued this over and over again, and many of you know it, the only victim to a Democrat is one that they can utilize, that's important to them, is if they feel they can use that victim as a tool, as a weapon to harm political opposition. And that redacting of the name that exonerated Trump was just another example. And I mean, it's just so depraved. We're talking about girls that were trapped on an island being raped. And that you see as fair game as well? So this is some audio. There's an author by the name of Barry Levine, and he has a book, The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And here he is on these, particularly the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. What exactly does this mean? This is on CNN.
On that 2011 email, we'll put it up on the screen, and I will ask you, the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. What do you think he's referring to?
Well, I think Jeffrey Epstein is referring to the fact that he believes that Donald Trump talked to Michael Ryder, who was the Palm Beach police chief in 2004, and began the first investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. I suspect that Jeffrey Epstein, in his conversation or email with Maxwell, was saying he was 75% there, believing that Trump might have been the whistleblower at the time. Again, you have to remember that particular year, the two men had a falling out, not only over the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was taking young women from his spa at Mar-a-Lago for Jeffrey Epstein, but they also had a nasty real estate deal that both men were trying to get. So there was bad blood between the two of them.
Now, this is all very interesting information in context. His reference, the author of this book there, to Epstein griping and complaining about Trump and his concerns that Trump knew that Ghislaine was essentially poaching these girls. Hey, come work for us. It's going to be awesome. Making all these promises, which incidentally, these girls did not realize what they were getting into. Because they would find themselves trapped. They were told all of, these wonderful things and, that you can be hired as a personal assistant or this until they get there. And then they were essentially trapped on this island. And they were utilizing Mar-a-Lago as one of the locations to poach these girls. Say, oh, psh. Well, you're a server at Mar-a-Lago, man. This is nothing. What, you share an apartment with a roommate? Shh. And you can have so much more than that. You could live on your own tropical island. Another selective edit that was released by the Democrats was, Trump says, or that Epstein, these emails say Trump knew about the girls. Well, the context is Epstein complaining about the fact that Trump, or he at least believed, knew about the girls being poached. That they were hiring these girls away from Trump. And this is what long has been cited as the reason that Trump would eventually ban Jeffrey Epstein. And it sort of dovetails that his inappropriate behavior towards some of these young girls. And while it never was really specific in terms of sexual nature, that could be interpreted as that or as poaching some of these girls. I mean, in reality, none of this has been in dispute for years now. You throw in there the fact that this was a period of time in which, essentially in the real estate world, Epstein and Trump were enemies. Well, that's not the story we've been told, right? Oh, they were these great buddies. These emails demonstrate that clearly was not the case. At least post, this period of time where Trump had banned him from Mar-a-Lago. You had these real estate battles of whatever capacity going on. And of course, when you pull back and you look at the full scope of this, we're supposed to believe that Jeffrey Epstein, that these emails demonstrate, did not like Trump. Was ticked off at Trump not just because he banned him from Mar-a-Lago and was cutting off his ability, or at least making it less simple for him to have access to girls to poach away from him, but when it came to real estate deals, they were these enemies. Yet during the period of time that the Biden administration and that the FBI and the CIA and any of these different agencies also desperately trying to get Trump on anything whatsoever, and Epstein still being here, Epstein's in prison, and he still decides to cover up for Donald Trump, his enemy? See, this is how Democrats necessitate their existence on a voting base that doesn't even just think past the front door. Aside from exonerating evidence, None of this ever made any sense anyhow in terms of Trump somehow being implicated in this, because all of the people who would have had the information, had the proof, or even just the sheer accusations, you're supposed to believe that they all covered it up for Donald Trump even though they hated him. Not to mention the fact, and you could take it for what you want, believe it or not, but Jeffrey Epstein's cellmate said Epstein told him that the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, Joe Biden, came to him and said, listen, we just need some allegations. We don't even need proof, but just something to start congressional hearings. Now, like I said, that guy is a felon, and you can believe him, you cannot believe him. But aside from that, exoneration everywhere. I want to go back here because I think this is very interesting. This author is talking here about how Epstein was upset in these emails because he felt that perhaps Trump was the one who was feeding this information to be, quote, whistleblower, if you want to call it that term. That the reason law was on to Epstein and much of this was beginning to become exposed and he was becoming, potentially in danger in terms of justice, coming after him, knocking on his door in a meaningful way, was because Donald Trump was feeding them information. And the term informant has been used. After Congress had received so many of these documents from the Department of Justice, Mike Johnson made comments, and this is months ago. And I remember this because we played it, and I thought, well, that's sort of an interesting, what might be seen as a slip, but wasn't corrected, and this is Mike Johnson on Trump.
It's been misrepresented. He's not saying what Epstein is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down.
So that's Mike Johnson. So the question was around the time when Trump was saying that this was a hoax, talking about in the context of Trump having some sort of involvement with Jeffrey Epstein when it comes to the girls. But Johnson very clearly was like, not only is Trump not involved in this, he was an informant for the FBI when it came to Epstein. And that wasn't something that he would correct or say, well, maybe informant's not the best term to use, but he was being cooperative. He used the term informant. And so when you hear that and you see these different messages in which Jeffrey Epstein is concerned that Trump realizes what is going on in terms of poaching the girls from Mar-a-Lago, and that he was the quote, the dog that won't whistle, and the biographer noting, well, yeah, that was him referencing the fact that he thinks Trump is the one who is quietly feeding potentially damaging information to law enforcement. The crazy thing about all of this is it's almost similar to the offering up of the National Guard Trump gave on January 6th. Like, he was the one guy who was saying we need the National Guard there, and everyone else under the sun, Pelosi and crew, were saying no National Guard, no National Guard. Yet they flipped that upside down to where they were acting like they wanted National Guard, and Trump was the one who refused to send them. With Jeffrey Epstein, the more evidence that comes out shows that Donald Trump was like the one person who was saying, get out of here, the one person that disconnected his association from Epstein well before all of this real nasty information started to come up. According to this biographer, and it seems as if the Epstein emails them from Epstein indicate that Donald Trump, they were concerned, was the one who was working with law enforcement, or at least providing actual meaningful information to law enforcement about things Jeffrey Epstein did. So Trump's like the one guy. The one guy Yet the media and the Democrats are trying to portray him as if he was the one that was doing something wrong. Now, there's another interesting component to this, and this is the fact that in real time, apparently, we've got to get a traffic update. But in February of 2019, you may recall one time Trump attorney Cohen, he turned on Trump, so Democrats couldn't wait to get him in a congressional hearing. One of the Democrat members sitting on that committee was in real time receiving text messages from Jeffrey Epstein himself directing this Democrat as to what questions to ask. You literally had a sitting member in Congress acting as a puppet for Epstein. So we'll share that info coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Epstein texted with House Democrat during Cohen hearing, documents show. Well, isn't this interesting? Apparently, a Democrat on the House Oversight Committee was in real time being directed by Epstein on how to question former Trump attorney Cohen. In the text, Epstein appeared to be watching the February 2019 hearing in real time, at one point informing Democrat Plaskett, whose name is redacted from the documents, that Cohen had brought up former Trump executive assistant Rona Graff in his testimony at the time Cohen was testifying before the House Oversight Committee against his former boss, alleging Trump was a racist, manipulated financial records, and directed hush money payments to cover up his extramarital affairs. Trump, of course, denied. Epstein at one point texted the sitting Democrat, quote, Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. Rona, Plaskett responded, quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? She added, suggesting that she would question Cohen soon. Epstein replied, that's his assistant. The copies of text messages were included in a trove of thousands of pages of documents containing Epstein's emails and other communications released Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee. The message shows Epstein was invested in what Cohen was sharing about Trump, the financier's former friend, during his testimony. Now, remember, this is during the period of time they had become any sort of relationship that may have existed was not by any definition, a friendly one. Though the name of Epstein's texting partner was redacted in the documents, timestamps on the text messages matched up with video from the hearing, as well as the message's contents indicated that Epstein was texting with Plaskett, who represents the U.S. Virgin Islands as its non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives. Reached by phone Thursday, Plaskett declined to answer. After the story was published Friday evening, Plaskett's office issued the following statement, quote, "During the hearing, Congresswoman Plaskett received texts from staff, constituents, and the public at large offering advice, support, and in some cases, partisan vitriol, including from Epstein. As a former prosecutor, she welcomed information that helped her get at the truth and took on the GOP that was trying to bury the truth. The Congresswoman has previously made clear her long record combating sexual assault and human trafficking, her disgust over Epstein's deviant behavior, and her support for his victims. The messages show that Plaskett texted Epstein before the hearing started at 7:55 a.m., telling him, quote, he'll talk about his grades. Epstein replied 1 minute later, what privilege stands behind the non-release of college transcripts? Epstein texted Plaskett, great outfit. You look great, he added at 10:22. Thanks, exclamation point. She replied shortly afterwards. Doesn't it sound like she's just so disgusted with him? Now, again, her office claimed, oh, no, she just was getting just texts from random people, just offering advice, but she just has no use for Epstein. I mean, he was just one of many people. They sure sound friendly. At around 10:48 a.m., a broadcast feed cut to Plaskett showing her moving her mouth as if she was chewing something, to which Epstein sent a message, are you chewing? Not anymore, she said. Chewing interior of my mouth, bad habit from middle school. So he's like sitting there like, a little, just watching her, texting her in real time what she's doing. Epstein asked at 12:50, how much longer for you? Hours. Go to other meetings, she replied. The quick I'm up next text to Epstein was sent at 2:25 p.m., minutes before Plaskett began questioning Cohen at 2:28. Epstein messaged back, good work. Good work. At 2:34, 1 minute after Plaskett finished her questioning of Cohen. The text messages indicated Epstein may have influenced what questions to ask Cohen. Yeah, slightly. Texting Plaskett, Epstein at 12:25 said, he's opened the door to question, who are the other henchmen around Trump organization? Yep, very aware and waiting my turn, she texted back to Epstein. When Plaskett questioned Cohen during the hearing, she asked about Trump associates, that obviously was just mentioned in the text by Epstein. And then it goes on and on. And so clearly, at the very least, unethical and inappropriate relationship when you have a sitting member of Congress there receiving text messages in real time. This is 2019 from Epstein directing her as to what questions to ask former attorney of Donald Trump. I don't know about you, but that seems like pretty big news. Any of the show you missed, fear not, of course. We do have the podcast section at KSGF.com and also the KSGF app. News coming up next. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you got home buying needs, you got Emily. You got home selling needs, you also have Emily Johnson. Let's not forget her incredible husband, Will. They make a great duo, whether you are looking for that nice neighborhood home, or you at the white picket fence, or you live out. You live way out and out in the land, and you want ranching, and you have like the barns and these outer buildings and so forth. Will handles more of that, while Emily is more of the neighborhood type. And of course, there's a little bit of crossover there, I'm sure. But point being is, oftentimes, there are a lot of considerations that come along with one that don't come along with the other. So considerations for buying a farm or a ranch with hundreds or thousands of acres that aren't necessarily going to be of concern if you live in a nice little neighborhood, and vice versa. And so that's the benefit of having these two individuals that work together and cover each of those two areas. So you always have access to an expert, whether it is that rural life or it is more of the neighborhood, even urban life. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. So I'd mentioned this Democrat by the name of Plaskett, whom we now know as she represents the U.S. Virgin Islands as a non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives. And whenever the Democrats brought former Trump attorney Cohen on to testify before Congress in order to trash Trump, we now know, based off of the text message information that was revealed by the House Oversight Committee, that Epstein was directing this Democrat member what questions to ask Cohen, seemingly trying to lead him in a direction to trash on Trump. Now, I find it interesting that given the relationship between Epstein and this elected Democrat and the attempt here to attack Trump and to help her make Trump look bad, he never really revealed anything about Trump being on the island or having sex with these girls or anything. Isn't that interesting? I found a story from St. Thomas Source.com. This is a news site out of St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, in which this Democrat is a rep. And the story at the time noted a lawsuit brought by 6 Jeffrey Epstein victims against Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett has been voluntarily dismissed with prejudice and without cost against Plaskett, according to a notice filed on the docket in the district court for the Southern District of New York. The dismissal ends nearly 2 years of litigation that initially included the Virgin Islands government, past governors, and other territory officials that the plaintiffs allege supported and benefited from Epstein's sex trafficking scheme. The source sought comment from Plaskett and her attorney, Eric Breslin of Duane Morris LLP, and Jordan Merson, the attorney for the plaintiffs, but have not received a response as of Thursday afternoon. The complaint alleged negligence and violations of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA, and the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Organization Act, known as RICO. Plaskett was the sole remaining defendant in the suit by the Jeffrey Epstein victims, first filed in November of 23 by Jane Doe 1, 2, 3, 4, and Jane Doe 5. Amended that December to add a 6th plaintiff, and amended again last May after Judge R.N. Subramanian dismissed the charges against the rest in March. He said in the ruling that the Congresswoman was the only defendant the complaint alleged traveled to New York or actively solicited funds from Jeffrey Epstein in New York, and that the court lacked personal jurisdiction over the other 6 officials named in the lawsuit. So it was a jurisdictional issue, apparently, in which resulted in the dismissal of this particular case. So this is a woman, and this is just, again, the media and their failure to just provide truthful, factual information because of their obsession with Trump. But of these document releases, a sitting elected Democrat who at one point was sued by 6 of Jeffrey Epstein's victims because of her involvement in helping cover this up. And here she was receiving text messages in real time from Jeffrey Epstein, directing her as to what questions to ask Cohen in order to make Trump look bad. That's kind of a conspiracy, I would think. Oh, but nothing to see there, of course. Nothing to see there. We got weather coming up in a moment. We should be connecting up with Congressman Burleson as well. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers throughout the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high near 70.
I mean, they will not, the city of Springfield, stop until they absolutely take over, or destroy, or do whatever is necessary to get that little piece of land.
I was
from
literally
Hotel,
thinking that
they
when
will
she was telling
not
that
give
story.
that. Yeah, it's not as if the city knows where the people stand on this. And the reason that we know the city knows, if you don't recall the somewhat recent historical background on this, they voted to do this already, but there were enough signatures gathered by citizens to have a vote as to whether to overturn the council's decision. And the council just went ahead and overdid their own decision. They overturned their own decision because they know what the people in Springfield want. I know for a lot of folks, and obviously we're going to talk about this, they're going to move forward with this. I mean, there may be one or two votes that are on the side of business rights and personal property rights and what the majority of people in Springfield want, but they're going to move forward and do it. Whatever they have to do in order to get their precious takeover, underway. And like I said, so we'll be talking about it as it develops. But it's not as if this is some sort of, absentee landlord and some sort of building in which there's mold and you have people that are getting sick because they're living. This is something that for decades has been around. And I know for most people in Springfield, just because of sheer numbers, I don't even know exactly where this is. But I'm telling you, during the period of time it's open, you go out there, there's a line. It's just so long for people to get in there. It's become a traditional thing, which I like to see because one of the things that's great about it when you sit and, because I've been in that line before, people don't have their phones out. I mean, some do, but for the most part, you got older people, you have younger people that are interacting with each other. They're outside in the fresh air, looking to have just a good, clean, fun of a time, an offering that has been around for, decades. And this city could not care any less. They want their piece of land there for, people who are on the left in particular. They love taking up private property and converting it to something that they can control. And this is part of their grand plan for stuff. And they just are not going to let up on this guy. Now, it will be interesting though to see if we again deal with a situation in which they say, okay, let's have another crack at this, and then there are enough signatures voted or enough signatures gathered to put a vote to the people again, or if they have figured out some sort of loophole around the people being able to do that. It's going to be interesting to see that play out. And like Angela noted there's going to be a council meeting on this one tonight, so we shall see. Congressman Burleson joining us this morning. I want to first question to ask, maybe you can decipher all of this for me. I find myself very confused because on one hand, I know, and we have these left-wing protesters in Springfield. They were demanding that people get their benefits and demanding that the government reopen. And so finally, enough Democrats sided with Republicans to reopen the government, and now it's like, we got to punish those Democrats that sided with Republicans. We got to get Chuck Schumer out of there. It's just kind of confusing. I'm not exactly sure what these Democrat voters wanted, because on one hand, they demanded that people start getting their benefits again, and now that they're demanding that many of these Democrats pay the price for siding with Trump. It's very confusing to me.
I think I think that they don't know what they're advocating for.
Sometimes the simplest answer, right?
They just want to throw things at the man with the orange face.
Yeah.
Right. So that's I think he's absolutely right when he said earlier this year in his State of the Union, if I cured cancer, you all would boo me.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing, like, before Trump, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, all of these Democrats supported a stronger border, but now it's because it's connected to Trump. I mean, this is something that's heresy. So
I love these.
It's really all Trump derangement syndrome. That's the core of the Democratic Party philosophy today.
I love these non-traditional journalists that will go out and interview. It's usually younger people, and ask them, so what is so awful about Donald Trump? How are people losing their freedoms? And then whenever they'll say, for example, well, people are just being deported for, being, just trying to have a better life. And then note the numbers under Obama. And they're like, well, I'm not really familiar with that. And I saw one over the weekend. And so literally the follow-up question was, well, does that change your perspective on things then? And the answer was no. It's like they don't even care. I mean, it's just... the Democrat Party, where would it exist if it were not for people's inability or unwillingness to just think past their own nose?
Yeah. What is it? Ben Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
But when you're operating on feelings, you don't care about facts. Right?
Yeah. No, it's so true. Hey, I do want to ask you, because I was talking about earlier in the show, the coverage of Trump telling Republicans just go ahead and release all those files. And this is being described as a, quote, reversal. And reversal to me means the opposite of what you were doing before, which I infer based off of such a headline that Trump was demanding that Republicans block the release. Now, best I remember, Trump's annoyance or calls for Republicans in Congress wasn't saying do not allow these documents to see the light of day. It was to, quote, get back on focus and to get out there and start focusing on things that matter. Am I incorrect in my memory there?
Yes, you are. I think that the part of the problem is that you've got, I think that the core of this is that you got a attorney general's office that has got way too many irons in the fire.
Oh, agreed.
They've got a lot to do, and I think that this became a distraction to,
agreed.
Some of his other priority, which is what happened with J6, what actually happened. Who were the people that actually tried to Comey and Brennan and Clapper and all of these guys that tried to basically coup the United States of America. And so that, along with numerous other things, I think we're not, suddenly it's like this Epstein thing, which clearly has occupied people within the FBI and the Department of Justice for 2 decades now, and they still don't really have answers.
Right.
So I think my guess is, and I don't know because I'm not in the inner circle, but my guess is that there's no win in what happens with the Epstein thing, because no matter what he releases,
of course,
people are going to say, "Oh, well, it was you releasing it, so therefore you didn't release anything." So I think that no matter what, it wasn't a win, and so I think he wanted to move on. But now it's like, now the problem is politically, I think it was a fumble, a political fumble.
Agreed.
To me, you don't need to come out and say, don't look at this object, because suddenly now everybody wants to look at that object. And I think they should have just kept their heads down, released the documents as they've been doing it thoughtfully and through a deliberative process.
Well, some people may say this is semantics, but I looked back. I started looking at the articles, and they would quote Trump or show his postings on X saying that Republicans need to focus on more important things, or saying I don't care. All I care about is that Republicans get back on point, talk about the economy, talk about affordability. But I couldn't find, even in like the AP or these others, in which Trump was saying, that, oh, this needs to be kept away from the public. It was a priority thing, was my impression, that it was about Trump's frustration, that the focus was off, and not so much a message that, oh, this, in a vacuum needs to be covered up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that he feels confident that there's nothing in the files that condemns him in that regard, right? I think, the fact that there's an email exchange where Epstein is telling some friend of his that he's got the goods on, quote unquote goods on Trump when it comes to his financial dealings and more like bank loans and all that stuff, but not pertaining to anything else. Yeah. He specifically said he wasn't involved with the massages. That's code for clearly what he was doing. The question, I think the guy who was on the receiving end of that email should be questioned.
Well, sure. Now, did you see, I had the article, and I don't know, let's see, I want to say it was the Washington Post originally, the Democrat who represents the Virgin Islands, that she was receiving text messages from Epstein on what to ask Cohen. Like that to me is massive. Totally massive.
And my friend Clay Higgins, Louisiana, I'm in a text thread with him, and he's a member of the Freedom Caucus, and he said that he's going to file censure for that member, and then also alongside of having her removed from the Intelligence Committee.
Well, and I had to go to find the story on it. Let's see, what was the outlet here? It was out of St. Thomas. I found an article from some time ago regarding a lawsuit that she was involved in, where 6 of his victims filed a lawsuit against a number of government officials in the Virgin Islands, accusing them of helping him cover it up because of his property that he owned there. And she was one of those individuals, but I think for jurisdictional reasons, the judge threw it out. And so here, whether, you had a lawsuit in which she was one of the accused by 6 of his victims and helping him cover it up. It's wow. Crazy to me. Yeah, I found that it was a St. Thomas source, one of the media outlets out of St. Thomas.
Send that to me.
Yeah, I will. I'll send.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to you during the next break. Now, I want to ask you also. We got Congressman Burleson with us. So we were, of course, on The Great Escape last week, and I think it was last week, or maybe the end of the prior week, it just sort of popped up. Oh, golly gee, we know who the person is that left the, quote, pipe bombs outside the DNC and the RNC, and it's this woman who was a Capitol Hill police officer. And some of the outlets I saw indicated, well, there was an idea of who it may be, but then there were some outlets flat out naming the person with pictures. What's the latest on that?
I do not know. There's so much that's been happening that story has gotten buried. So I'll have to look into that. But to me, this is a huge scandal if that's huge. True. If it's someone from Capitol Police who was planting these things, I think that once we get this investigation completely complete, then we'll get a full picture of what exactly happened. And I think what you'll find is that this whole event, like all the violence that happened and what little violence that did happen was all being spurred up by either people from the FBI or other agencies.
Anything else at all that
So
has
I would
been
say
occurring?
I would say that the pivot right now that the Democrats are making, I fully embrace when it comes to affordability, because I want to have that debate. And so my committee that I chair, that's my platform, if you will. So our next hearing is going to be on the affordability of the healthcare system and what we can actually do, and I mean it, actually do to bring down healthcare costs. And then the next hearing that we're going to be doing is on the affordability of homes and what needs to actually happen for us to be able to afford to buy homes again. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is so important, and some of it to me is so clear. And these analyses comes out every so often, and you find out from a lot of these associations that are involved with building homes and construction. Note the massive percentage of cost to a new home because of regulations, because of the need for, you got to pay the local government for this and the county government for that. I mean, it is so massive, the added cost just right there alone.
Yeah, it is crazy. And the amount of regulations. I mean, look.
Oh, yeah.
I talk to people all the time who got sick and tired of trying to build something in Greene County, so they went to Webster County, or they went, or Christian County. I don't know if this is true, but I keep hearing that it is so difficult to build in Christian County. A lot of the developers have moved on. They're not looking for opportunities in Christian County, and that's a shame, and that's something that the county commission should be getting their hands on and saying, what is going on here? Why are we hearing from so many major developers that they don't want to touch Christian County? Because not only are their taxes way high, but their regulations are through the roof as well.
I just don't understand the mindset, whether it is, Christian County, Greene County, or any of these other the Webster County or these other counties where you do have businesses move or developers move because of I understand why they're doing it, obviously, but you see these areas in which it's clear that there are regulations and difficulties put in place that are burdensome enough that you're losing out on that. Why on it just my instinct is that the instinct of people in charge should be, oh, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're doing something wrong here. But they just seemingly don't care. I just don't understand.
Well, I mean, it's a bureaucrat that has to justify their existence, right? So they're in the field, that they've studied all the building codes of the world, and so therefore they have an opinion on how things ought to be built. The problem is when you give them the tool of power for them to force that upon everyone else, then that's the problem that we face. And it's clear. I mean, are buildings falling down in Webster County? No,
I know, right?
Webster.
I know. You would think
it's not like there's more fires or anything else. It's just bureaucrats who have to justify their existence.
Congressman Burleson, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate your time this morning.
Have a great day.
All right, you do the same. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, refinancing as well, and perhaps reverse mortgage. What is that exactly? Do I have to completely own my home? Is that a scam? Well, it's not a scam. It's something that may not necessarily be a good fit for you, but if you are of a particular age and you just planning on, well, I don't want to lay out particular scenarios because ultimately the point is, if you wonder about it, reach out to the characters in their team and let them know you've heard about it. And you've heard, well, gosh, I can, just sort of get paid off for my house, but still continue to live in it. That sounds too good to be true. What are the stipulations? Do I have to completely own my home? And they can let you know what it is you need to know about that particular scenario and whether that is something that would be a great thing for you. You never know, it could be. And then same thing when it comes to purchasing your first home or your eighth home or buying a unit that you plan on using as a rental, whatever it is that you are just wanting information on. Reach out. They are there for that purpose. And then, of course, helping you get it done when the moment comes and you've decided that it is right for you. I want a great homeloan.com because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers throughout the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high near 70. And Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, the Foreman team, they are hiring for service techs. So if you are out there listening and you are looking for a change of pace and you are in the HVAC industry, industry, reach out to Russell today. Now, the Foreman team, they are for sure hiring 1, maybe 2 service techs. Now, the Foreman team, they are locally owned, they are family owned, they offer competitive wages, and they're just all around awesome. So if that's what you're looking for in a company, you have definitely found it with Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. And of course, for the rest of you out there, the Foreman team, they can tackle all of your HVAC needs, whether you need just a simple service repair, indoor air quality testing, or maybe it's finally time to install a new unit. Now, to schedule your appointment or to submit your application, you can do that at foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of the contact information for the Foreman team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Democratic Representative Brad Sherman is firing back after photos went viral appearing to show him viewing explicit messages on a tablet while aboard a flight. And I've seen the pictures, and it looks, I don't know if it's an iPad, a tablet, and numerous photos. They're not real clear, but they're clear enough you can tell it was inappropriate material. And this was posted on Friday. He is a California congressman, 71 years old, and it shows him staring at a tablet with his mouth agape while scrolling through photos of women in their underwear. And this was now I'm going to make an assumption here. My assumption is that he had been looking at them long enough for someone to notice, to get out their phone, and to start taking pictures. I think that's significant for reasons I'll explain in a moment. One ex-post noting, why did California Congressman Brad Sherman feel it was appropriate to look at porn on his iPad during a flight today? The post had amassed 12.4 million views as of Saturday evening. Sherman denied the allegation, and a spokesperson for the congressman told Fox News Digital the pictures appeared because of his algorithms on X, formerly Twitter. A spokesperson for Sherman told Fox News Digital in an email, quote, "This was nothing more than scrolling through Twitter, and unfortunately, Elon Musk has ruined the Twitter algorithm to give people content that they don't ask for or subscribe to." Sherman similarly told Punchbowl News the images appeared on his X feed under the For You section on X, a page that shows recommended content. Quote, "This was on Twitter. These pictures came up for you," Sherman told Punchbowl News, adding he viewed a variety of posts during his cross-country flight. Quote, "If you have to fly across the country, you look at a lot of stuff on your tablet. If I see a picture of a woman, might I look a little longer than a sunset? Yeah." When asked whether he thought the content was appropriate to view on a plane, he told Punchbowl News, "Is it pornography? I don't think Elon Musk thinks so. Is it appropriate? No." So, okay, a couple of things here. One, I love how this is Elon Musk's fault, that he scrolled through them. Now, like I said, okay, now here's why I think it's significant that it was apparently long enough for somebody to notice he was doing it.
Yeah, he was hovering.
Right. Because, and let me explain, and I'm going to actually weave in one of my own experiences that I had when we were flying either to or from the Great Escape. And what I usually do is I go to Netflix. A lot of people don't know you can do this. You can download on your device from Netflix, and you may be able to do it from others as well. You don't have to pay anything additional. Now, we've had some Great Escape flights where Wi-Fi was available, some that are not. And so I always download the movies. That way I can watch them while on the flight. And oftentimes I have no idea what the movies are. I look for something a little bit different. But I was watching, let's see, I don't even remember the name of it because I didn't, oh yeah, it was a weird movie, but I had no idea what it was about. And a scene was coming up where the wife comes home and she hears noises coming from her husband's bedroom and she opens it. Well, I immediately just hit the 10-second or 30-second forward because I have no idea what's going to be there. And, I don't think it's going to be anything too much, but, you're on a plane, and even if it's PG-13, I don't know. I would feel awkward viewing that, knowing that there are other people on the plane, sitting around me. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how long would it take? Like, even if someone's just watching me scroll, and then I come across something and they see it the moment I do, the amount of time that it would take for that person to, excuse me, pull out their phone and take pictures, I would have already X'd out of it. I would have been like, oh my gosh, I got to close that out. I know I would have done that based off of, again, the fact that I immediately skipped past what I suspected may have been a scene with, even if there wasn't nudity, and I don't know because I skipped over it. So like I said, I didn't see and I didn't go back and watch it. Wasn't good enough of a movie to do that. So I don't know. The fact that somebody was able to take numerous pictures, and the pictures I saw posted showed several different photos that he looked at. So he clearly kept going through and scrolling on it. I find this somewhat humorous for a number of reasons. One, like, why on an airplane when
Yeah, that's
somebody
weird.
can so clearly see you? It just seems like you can't wait to do that. And is it the biggest thing in the world? If they were, because do they show nudity on Twitter or X? I don't even know. I have no idea.
I don't know.
I just really don't use it that often at all. So I have no idea if, I guess I could go look at my For You section and see, maybe it would have women popping up in lingerie. I have no idea. The blaming it on Elon Musk is the other thing that I find humor. That, well, this is just because Elon Musk, he trained the algorithms to make people who have no interest whatsoever in seeing half-naked women see half-naked women pop up on their screen. Apparently, even if that were the case, Elon Musk is pretty intuitive, because clearly this member of Congress did not turn away very quickly.
Well, I'm scrolling. I haven't seen any naked women yet.
Well, I guess Elon Musk did not ruin your feed.
I guess not.
Just give him time. It is one of those. I kind of get it in this sense. If you do get caught doing that, is it the biggest thing in the world? No, but it's embarrassing enough that you are compelled to lie about it. But it's the sort of lie I think that nobody is going to, particularly if you're not that tech savvy and you've heard the word algorithm. I feel kind of like that's where this guy is coming from. He knows that algorithms sort of direct certain things to you, and he doesn't know necessarily maybe how that works, and so he throws out the term algorithm. And then Elon Musk, knowing that his supporters will easily, as a Democrat, be like, oh yes, clearly Elon Musk, he's evil. And so you find yourself in that weird place where it really probably isn't worth lying over, but admitting it is still just embarrassing enough that you find yourself, or at least this member of Congress found himself, lying about it. And but blaming it on Elon Musk, that's pretty good stuff. Oh, Elon. I might have started checking out X a little more. Maybe that's what the X stands for. I just didn't know it all this time. All right, so I checked. I do not have any women in lingerie.
Well, I thought that you might actually, because you
We're
were
just talking
talking
about it,
and
yeah.
the phone hears all.
Like I said, I just really don't utilize it anywhere close to.
I do
What-
like Twitter or X every once in a while. They've got good little clips.
sent from the app. The algorithm is going to send you things you've already looked
Yep.
at repeatedly. That's how they work.
Yep.
Yeah, and
That's what we were
that's
talking about.
what I assume. I mean, I know that that's generally how algorithms work, but like I said, because I don't really visit X that often, I guess I was being somewhat generous in leaving it open to maybe those algorithms worked a bit differently. But I was being very generous in that offering for the 71-year-old Democrat congressman from California. Let's see. The for you is stuff that you would, let's see, stuff that you would be, something you would react to or comment. For you, wait, my for you is Democrat rage bait that I will argue with the libs on. He is a thirst trap, apparently. Another said, surprised he didn't say that they were, they, them were trans. You know, it wasn't normal women. They were real. Why are you questioning me? Yeah, turn it into I'm a victim. Researching. Maybe he could have. That's another one that the left. They used to say that when they would get caught with pornography. That was it. There was a member of some. Was it the Who? There was some legendary member of a rock and roll band. I mean, this was a long time ago. Internet period. And I recall he got caught with a lot. I think it was child pornography, and he claimed he was doing research for a book. Like what book? Ocasio-Cortez, quote, I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. So apparently now, Ocasio-Cortez is creating a coalition that includes Nazis. A new appeal from Cortez to bring Trump voters into her political fold stands at odds with a record that includes sustained criticism of Trump supporters and numerous disputes with conservative activists and officials. She posted in a video, I want to say this right now, I fully welcome Trump voters, a.k.a. Nazis, into our coalition. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. She claims that she's approached by individuals all the time who are coming up to her that once upon a time, quote, were a big Trump supporter and that they watch Fox News every day before they expanded their information sources. According to her account, these individuals told her that they've learned and changed and aligned more closely with her views over time. So we're supposed to believe, according to Ocasio-Cortez, people who have Nazi beliefs, people who think men are men, women are women, people who are very oftentimes pro-life, people who are for securing the border, getting government off our back, that they suddenly decided, despite having those beliefs, Ocasio-Cortez is someone that they are aligned with, or that and she's hearing this constantly, all of the time. Okay. But to me, the appropriate headline is Ocasio-Cortez, I fully welcome Nazis into my coalition. Because this, of course, is what she and so many others have long claimed Trump supporters are. Mamdani is telling his 1 million social media followers to boycott Starbucks amid ongoing worker strike, saying that they need a fair contract. What a great way to really kick things off as new mayor is to begin immediately targeting businesses. And for Starbucks, this, whether it will be or not, but it's an opportunity to recognize that it doesn't matter how loyal you are to the left. It doesn't matter how much as an institution you lean to the left. Just one step out of line, and they will come for you. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Hour 3 on this great Monday. Here's what Gloria had to say about Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. We used Dan twice, and both times he and his crew did an outstanding job. Dan being Daniel Hunter. The first job was correcting a drainage issue on our driveway. Every time it rained, we had a muddy mess. Daniel corrected the issue 2 years ago, and we've had no problem since. Just completed a similar issue in our yard, this time installing AstroTurf. There were a number of steps involved. The crew was working every day by 7:30 a.m., putting in a full day. They did a great job, left the entire area in better shape than they started. We would highly recommend Hunter Lawn and Landscape, and of course, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, which is the name that they've had for some time now. I talk so much, again, about the outdoor living space, but oftentimes it's not just creating something awesome and new and adding to the value of your home in terms of outdoor living space, but correcting issues that may already exist. Water, it can be just as damaging as fire. Water as an element is such a damaging thing when not controlled. And so if you do have these drainage issues, as Gloria mentioned in her review, that is something that can easily be taken care of, as well as so much of all of the hardscaping and landscaping that they do at Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them online, hunterhardscapes.com, and see some before and after jobs, even do a cost estimate calculator, give you a ballpark idea of what you're looking for. And then over on my Facebook page, 1041 Nick Reed, you can see videos or reels of the work that I had done by Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. And of course, all their contact info and how to get to these different locations. Just go to Nick's Endorsements at KSGF.com. So, Ma'am Donnie already on the march against businesses. Not even in office yet. Mayor-elect Mamdani encouraged his more than 1 million followers to boycott Starbucks. Quote, Starbucks workers across the country are on an unfair labor practices strike, fighting for a fair contract, the 34-year-old wrote on Thursday. While workers are on strike, I won't be buying any Starbucks, and I'm asking you to join us. Together, we can send a powerful message: no contract, no coffee. On the same day, Starbucks Workers United, a union representing workers at the coffee giant, announced it was going on an open-ended strike in what's being dubbed the Red Cup Rebellion. As of today, Starbucks workers across the country officially on strike, the union wrote on social media, and we're prepared for this to become the biggest and longest ULP strike in Starbucks history. Thursday was also Starbucks Red Cup Day, during which customers could pick up a free reusable festive red cup for the holidays. Janice Anderson, Starbucks Director of Global Communications, noted in comments to Fox News Digital, in terms of our annual reusable Red Cup Day, we actually had a great day. 99% of our coffee houses remained open, welcoming customers. We exceeded our sales expectations, so forth, so forth. She further pushed back against the union narrative, saying, we're disappointed that Workers United, who represent less than 4% of our partners, has called for a strike instead of returning to the bargaining table. Less than 1% of our coffee houses are experiencing any level of disruption, and the vast majority of the 240,000 partners came to work ready to serve customers and celebrate reusable cup days. This guy's not even in office yet, and he's already putting a target on businesses. But this is what socialists do. This is how Venezuela went from the wealthiest South American country in existence to the bottom of the barrel in just a generation. This is what causes Cuba to never get its head above water in terms of meaningful living conditions. This is what caused the Soviet Union to collapse. This is why socialism anywhere and everywhere fails. Because the people who produce the jobs, who create these jobs, are the people that come under attack. And this is no different. Think of the difference in approach between Donald Trump as he was waiting to get sworn into office both the first time in 2016 and most recently versus the approach of somebody on the left like Mamdani, who arguably is the energy in the Democrat Party. Donald Trump was out there securing deals, billions and billions into the trillions of dollars of deals with companies that would build incredibly well-paying jobs right here in the United States, just one after another, talking about tens of billions of dollars of investments. I mean, it was almost on a daily basis, these press conferences with people, largely tech companies, but also auto companies and electronic companies that were standing there next to the President of the United States announcing that because of deals that were made with Donald Trump and because of his vision of the American future, that they had decided to invest all of this money here in the United States. So that was the Trump approach as he was prepping to be sworn in again. Here you have the energetic leader of the Democrat Party, and his approach is to attack businesses. His approach is to tell people to do harm to the business. I mean, what is the point of a boycott other than to punish them, to do harm to them? Which means, of course, let's just say that it works. Who gets harmed? Is it the CEO of Starbucks? Is it the six-figure upper management in corporate headquarters? Or is it the part-time worker? Is it the entry-level wage worker that loses their job? We all know how this works because it works the same way over and over and over again. It's the people who, quote, need the help the most that are the first ones to feel the hurt. And of course, this is the Democrat Party could not survive, even in New York, if Democrat voters were informed and educated. What was one of the big selling points? Oh, he's going to make things affordable. He's demanding that people boycott Starbucks unless Starbucks pays employees more, which means they have to then either cut some people who lose their jobs altogether or raise prices. That's how this works. For those of you on the left who don't understand, when you get a paycheck from your employer, that money is coming from the consumer. The consumer is paying you, as well as paying taxes and regulations and insurance and the light bill and the electric bill and everything else that cost. And the employee is a massive expense. So if you raise the cost of an employee, you have to have more money come in, which means, or you, again, cut it elsewhere, but you have to have that revenue source coming in, and that means raising the price on the customer, raising the price. So all of these idiots running around that are Mamdani fans, because he's going to work on policies that lower the price of things, he's encouraging them to go out and take action that results in increased prices. And they'll do it because they're idiots. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers throughout the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high near 70.
You want a fun project? Because you're not busy.
What's the fun project?
There's been this feud within the, I don't know if it's even within the GOP or factions of the GOP, this Fuentes guy, because he was like on with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And then there's like, a heritage, or there's some other, I don't really follow this stuff nearly to the degree a lot of people do. I think a lot of it is irrelevant to the larger picture of things. I'm not saying it's not important. I don't know that it is, but so Fuentes, what's his first name?
Nick.
Nick, yeah. I should
Yeah,
remember that.
duh.
You'd think that would be easy to remember. So one of the things that I keep seeing is, like Nick Fuentes, who in the past has made comments defending Hitler. Or not defending, but praising Hitler, they say, praising Hitler. And so I think it was when we were on The Great Escape. I'm like, because I've never even listened to Nick Fuentes. I've never listened to any of his interviews. I know who he is because I remember Kanye West and was going to have Trump or lunch with Trump or Mar-a-Lago and told Trump, oh, hey, will you stop by? I'm going to have lunch. And Nick Fuentes was there and Trump didn't know who he was or something. They tried to make it into some big deal. The media did. So I remember his name from that. But other than that, I don't know who the guy is. But for the fact that there's like a lot of Republicans are like, we shouldn't be constantly throwing Republicans under the bus just because they say controversial things. And then there are others that like, we have to not let people like this be part of the Republican Party. There's no point in it. And so I was like, what? I keep seeing that he praised Hitler. And I'm like, what? I'm always curious whenever somebody is listed as praising Hitler, because I'm like, what could you find to praise about Hitler? And was it like, what was the context? I mean, was this a notation that, Hitler, one of the reasons that he was popular is because he had a lot of economic policies that people really rallied around. Was it something like that was turned into he's praising Hitler or what? And I couldn't find what he said. I found a ton. So I would pull up all these articles. And maybe AI did chat GTP. Like, what did Nick Fuentes say that was praising Hitler? Because I wanted to find the quote, which I assumed probably would be not in context. And so I was going to try to find, okay, what, just out of curiosity. And all I found was references to the fact that he praised Hitler, or who is known to praise Hitler. And I just had a difficult time. And I thought for somebody that it just seems like the sort of thing that would be in every single article ever written about the guy. Mm-hmm. This isn't a defense of him. Like I said, I know nothing of it. I found, in fact, some of the things that he is accused of saying very difficult to even look up. So I can't defend what he said, because I can't find some of these things that he said or what the context of it was. I think I saw there was some. 'Cause I found one article in which there were just these quotes about him talking about, oh, if Hitler were alive today, he'd do this or something. It wasn't what I saw as praising or a defense. And again, the context wasn't given. But I don't know. I found it interesting that so many articles written specifically citing his greatest offense being all of this praise of Hitler, but I couldn't really find anything real solid. And I'm sure it exists out there. I just wasn't.
So this is my side project, is to find this for
You
you.
don't have to. I just more. I saw there was this, L.A. Times, Trump defends Tucker Carlson over interview with Nick Fuentes, known for anti-Semitic views, and even with the anti-Semitic views, I don't know. I'm told that he downplays the number of Jewish people killed in the Holocaust, and he's not a big fan of Israel. And I don't follow him. I don't know him. He's not somebody that really right now has an impact on me. And some may argue, well, that's why he should be squashed now. That's why Trump supporters should just do away with him now and before he becomes someone big and influential. But I suspect that if you were just to if you go to any Trump rally and found 1,000 Trump individuals at a Trump rally and ask them who Nick Fuentes is, I don't know that maybe a dozen would know. And maybe I'm completely underestimating his value to the quote movement. But I don't know. It just seems as if every headline that references him being such a big praiser of Hitler so often, that I don't know, that they'd throw these quotes in there, particularly given that they try and associate him with Trump. Maybe that's what they mean. Maybe he praised Trump a couple times, and that's what they were talking about. I don't know. Just something mulling around in my head as I keep seeing these headlines. And it does frustrate me a bit that any of these people are even weighing in on it, because that kind of gives the media a little bit of what they're looking for. Because now you got the headlines: Trump defending Tucker Carlson for interviewing Hitler lover, and I'm like, all right, I can't, I guess you can't necessarily make every decision based off of whether the media is going to be unfair or not, because then you wouldn't really be able to make any decisions as somebody who is a Trump supporter or a conservative. I want to share this news leader story that popped up last week coming up. Springfield voters typically support city taxes. What changed with the lodging tax? I find this article to be quite hilarious overall, and I want to share with you why coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Some of your text messages, Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. You cannot find some of Fuentes' rants because he's been deplatformed from most outlets. Ben Shapiro did a show with lots of material from his. It's bad. I'll send Sarah a link to the show. Well, and I've never really gotten the impression that he was great. Maybe I'm just a little sensitive to this Hitler praise thing thrown all over the place. Like, well, how many times do we hear that Trump praised Hitler? And I'm like, can we get a quote on this? Can we find where it was that he's, said this? And then when you force the media to do that, all of a sudden they're like, well, they went so far a few weeks ago to claim, well, no, it was Fitzger. Oh, no, Democrats have never accused Trump of being a Nazi or like, what are you talking about? Another Mark Levin had extensive segment on the guy in his own words, hideous. And like I said, I've never gotten the impression that he was a great guy. I never once listened to him. I don't know. I just never really felt compelled to do so. I understand he's deplatformed, but it just seems odd to me that all of these stories that want to connect him to Trump by the headline that he praises Hitler and the news stories, the left-wing news stories, don't put the quotes in there. Like, what did he? I just want to know what he said. I'm not arguing he didn't say these things. This is just the way that the media has become. Like, it just drives me. They just throw these things out. Like, show me what he said. Give that to me. I just want to know. And it's not only politically charged stories. This is one of my biggest gripes, and we've gone through news stories here before, some of which are local, that aren't politically charged at all, but it's like the most relevant information possible. It's like, it's not even in the story. It just drives me nuts. I want to talk about this piece in the news leader. Springfield voters typically support city taxes. What changed with lodging tax? And one of the things that the news leader does is, and I get why they do it, I don't like it, but they give you these bullet points at the beginning of the story. And this is, I think, in order to satisfy folks who don't necessarily have a full attention span, so they don't want to read a whole story, or to just give you highlights to maybe help you decide whether you want to read the story or not, little appetizers. I don't know why, I just don't like, but I understand why it's done. And the first 3 bullet points of the story note Springfield voters rejected a 3% lodging tax increase intended to fund a new convention center. This was the first time in more than 15 years that a city proposed tax was defeated at the polls. Low voter turnout, negative perceptions of the economy, and lack of project details likely contributed to the outcome. Now, part of what is great about that bullet point is the story itself acknowledges that is not true. But we'll get to that in a moment. That this was the one ballot question for people in Springfield, and it was to increase hotel motel taxes and other Airbnbs and so forth to help fund the construction of an estimated $170 million convention and event center. I thought this would pass. I thought it would pass because the people of Springfield, when asked to vote on such things, have generally low voter turnout, but in turn, that has at the same time demonstrated a vote in favor of tax increases. The news leader writes, the decision was a close call on election night with 52.56% opposing the increase to 47.44%. Now, this might just be nitpicking, but to me, in terms of elections, that's not close. Close is a half a percentage point or maybe 1. When you're talking with rounding 53 to 47, that's a significant loss. But when you look at the numbers themselves, it's fewer than 400 votes. But again, you didn't have that many people turn out to vote. Prior to the November 4th, Springfield voters rejecting, or prior to rather, November 4th, Springfield voters have rejected only one of the 17 city tax measures that have been on the ballot in the past 20 years. Now, those of you who might ask, why is it you always claim that Springfield just loves to increase taxes? Well, these would be the numbers that suggest that. The earliest or the most recent failure was back in 2009 when voters struck down a 1% sales tax to fund the police and fire pension. After a month-long process, a 3/4-cent sales tax crafted by a citizen task force went to the ballot in November of the same year, and it did pass. So one could argue that once you have that little asterisk there, I mean, you're looking at 17 tax increases that, with that again exception of that one time, every single time Springfield's like, yep, 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 yep. Consistently, Queen City Motors have been strongly supportive of tax measures put before them, with proposals receiving a little more than 70% of votes in favor on average. Most of the proposals in the past 2 decades were also for sales taxes, which directly impact voters at the register. Now, we're going to take a break, and I want to get into, they talked to a couple people for the piece. One is a professor of political science at Drury by the name of Dan Ponder, and the other one is Matt Morrow, who is the head of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce. So we'll get to their expert opinions on this coming up in just a moment. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance for isolated showers through the mid-morning, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 63. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high near 70.
There is, one may call it an autopsy report on the failed attempt to get another tax increase in Springfield in order to help fund a convention center. And so this is something they're trying, trying to figure out why this did not pass. And I think they were particularly surprised because, generally speaking, Springfield says, "Oh, another tax increase, serve it up," and that's not what happened this time. Now, one of the two people they interviewed was Dan Ponder, professor of political science at Drury University, and he said the outcome on Election Day was particularly surprising as lodging taxes are considered among the most popular to put forward. They are seen as an easy way for municipalities to raise money while not burdening local residents. Quote, taxes in general obviously are unpopular, but hotel taxes usually are a little bit more popular because most of the revenue is generated not by the local citizens, but by those outside of Springfield. This was mostly being paid by not us, and we passed tax increases where we will be paying it in the past. Let me read that again because this quote sounds funny. Quote, this was mostly being paid by not us, and we pass tax increases where we will be paying it in the past. So in other words, he's noting the contradiction and the fact that in Springfield, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a sort of masochistic component here that when it's a tax directly on the city that people see is really going to hit them, they're all for it. But if it's outsiders who are coming here to stay and don't actually live here, those people, that they should not have increased tax. You need to come live in Springfield in order to suffer like a real Springfieldian. But that is, on the surface, an interesting contradiction that of all of the tax increases, this is one that the voters rejected. And it is accurate that people generally, they like the idea of other people, quote, paying their taxes. And so when you're talking about, oh, these are people that are going to be visiting Springfield, that's a much different situation. You're going to get this new shiny thing over here called a convention center, but you're not going to have to foot the bill for it. The fact that that was not appealing enough for people to vote for it is a bit of a contradiction. Ponder said, so what happened is the question posed by the news leader. Ponder said it was likely several factors in combination that contributed to the significantly more negative result. With the anemic voter turnout, he said, negativity tends to win out, and those who feel strongly are more likely to show up at the polls. The low turnout is not surprising, he noted, as the measure was the only question on the ballot. So he's arguing here when asked, why do you think that this failed? And he's like, well, because this is what happens with low voter turnout. Now, the problem is, and the news leader, I give them credit for writing, the November 4 election turnout was on par with a typical 5 to 7% voter turnout seen historically during special elections where the city had put on only one issue on the ballot. That's compared to turnout between 10 and 18% during local elections when issues are coupled with school board candidates or other city questions on the ballot, even at the lowest turnout in the past 20 years, which was 5.63% in August of 23. Springfield voters still overwhelmingly supported the marijuana sales tax, which was the only issue on the ballot. So in other words, I'm not a journalist, and I know that it may seem like nitpicking, but they lead off with a bullet point in this article saying low voter turnout, negative perception of the economy, and lack of project details likely contributed to the outcome. They have a, quote, expert on that suggests that as well, but then they write some actual facts that completely contradict that. Noting that, like every election that we've had in the past 17 years had just as low voter turnout. One had lower voter turnout, but it wasn't a rejection of every single time. It was, other than the one anomaly, the people voted for it. So that's like very consistently contrary to what it is that they quote the Drury professor is saying. Now, I happen to believe he's wrong. I also, what I think would have just, this is me as a reader, I understand that, here's probably what happened, and good on them for doing some research. Reached out to an expert, and the expert said, here's the thing. And they're like, oh, well, let's see if that lines up with the facts. They find that it doesn't line up with the facts, and then they print the fact that, well, actually, here are the facts that contradict what the professor's saying. But I would have really been interested in them calling back the professor of jury and saying, hey, we kind of looked at what you told us, but we looked at the facts, and they are the exact opposite of everything you said. So, like, why might that be? What are your thoughts on that? I don't know. Maybe he would have none. He's like, I don't know. I'm just an expert. But I don't know. Or perhaps he would have been able to give some nuance and say, well, you know, maybe the way I worded it wasn't as as artful as it could have been in order to get across what I was trying to say, because, yes, I see how that's a contradiction, but here's the reality of it. But anyway. Local elections don't exist in a vacuum, Ponder said. He continued on. And people may have been more likely to vote against a tax measure or ignore the election altogether due to negative perceptions of the economy and the uncertainty of national politics. Springfield voters were not the only ones to reject a tax measure in the region. Christian County voters also struck down a county-wide use tax. And Nixa Fire Protection District voters voted against an increased tax levy. Quote, I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the uncertainty or just general feeling about politics from the White House to City Hall. I'm not saying any of these are necessarily the causal connection, but I think, kind of taken as a whole, people are just tired of politics. Now, I would again argue, and this is just, I'm not a professor of this stuff. I don't really remember a time when people are like, I love politics, right? I just think people are always, quote, tired of politics. He went on to note, many voters likely were simply unaware of an election taking place this fall, an off year for state and federal elections. Ponder said the lack of awareness and education on the topic likely contributed to both the low turnout and the tax failing. So, from Ponder, the reason that this may have failed is because of negative perceptions of the economy, the uncertainty of national politics, the lack of awareness, and lack of education on the topic. So there's four basic pillars of reason that the professor from jury feels that this did not pass. So let's look at Matt Morrow. And by the way, I'm going to give you my explanation as to why this did not pass, and it may come as no surprise to you. It is going to contradict what it is that these experts have delivered up. Doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. The news leader notes, although the tax measure garnered a few endorsements, the election cycle lacked any formal, organized campaign either in support or opposition to the tax. Matt Morrow, president of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce, said while the chamber board decided to endorse the tax measure, what a shock, there was not enough time to consider and activate the Chamber's Committee for the Future. The PAC currently holds more than $92,500, according to filings with the Missouri Ethics Commission, a large portion of which was transferred from the Good Government Committee when the PAC was dissolved in 2023. Reviewing an issue and deciding on an official stance alone can take 4 to 6 weeks, he said. A voter advocacy campaign would require at least 6 additional months to be effective. The short timeline was likely another factor in the election's outcome. Springfield City Council voted to send the lodging tax to the ballot just 20 days after receiving a final consultant's report on the convention center. The election took place just shy of 4 months after the report was presented publicly. The short turnaround, Morrow said, also meant voters had less time to familiarize themselves with the issue or the fact that there was an election at all. Quote, it takes a certain amount of time to build an effective campaign, but it also takes a certain amount of time for voters to just familiarize themselves with any issue or topic. There were good reasons why the timeline had to be accelerated, but in this case, I think that the response of the voters was understandably in a situation like this, that they didn't feel that they had enough information to say yes. Morrow acknowledged that the outcome of the election showed voters were not comfortable with the tax given the short time and the information given. Quote, our community speaks through elections One of the things that we learned in this case was that there hasn't yet been a strong enough case made that voters have a high level of confidence moving ahead with. Morrow, describing Springfield voters as smart and fair, was hopeful that if the topic comes back to the ballot in the future, additional certainty, details, and accountability can win additional support if voters feel confident in the investment. Quote, if there's an improved proposal and a better dialogue with community around it, and if you do all of that and voters still are unconvinced, then you certainly have to take that and accept it as well. And there's some other aspects of the article referencing Kehoe and $30 million. But so here's why I wanted to share this with you. And what you've got, so the professor from jury, the reasons that in his expert opinion listed as this failing potentially is that low voter turnout, which again is contradicted by the facts. So we'll just toss that one aside. Negative perceptions of the economy and uncertainty of national politics. And voters simply unaware that there was a vote, and a lack of education and awareness from the people who did voted. Matt Morrow, pretty much the same thing here. Saying, well, we just didn't have enough time to inform people as to what was going on. Now, I think when I look back on that, and again, hey, listen, I thought this would pass. So I was wrong. I, at the same time, fully acknowledged I didn't look real deeply into it because, hey, last 17 times there have been tax increase proposals. People in Springfield said yes. So I was like, all right, that's probably what's going to happen this time. The autopsy, however, I think is a little bit different. I think just maybe, people did not want to pay for a convention center. That's it. Now, I'm sure the response to that is, well, yeah, obviously. But we're evaluating why. But when it really comes down to it, the expert's explanation as to why you didn't want it, it's like a deficiency in your knowledge. It's because you just don't understand. You're uncertain about national politics. It's like all these sort of these. It's you having a negative approach. Maybe people, when asked, do you want to pay for a convention center, just thought, no. Maybe they don't need any more information. Maybe that's all the information they need. Sometimes when it comes to purchasing something, there is a lot of weighing the options. Like, do we need it? Do we not need it? We got to, okay, well, if that's going to be an added expense, like we're going to buy a new car. Well, we still probably have a good 100,000 miles on our car now. And arguably, there are often times that it's sort of you're weighing this side, you're weighing that side. But sometimes you just immediately think, no, we don't need that. And I understand that the perspective of those who want this is probably going to be, well, you just don't understand all of the great things that are going to happen because of it. And maybe if they take another crack at it and they do a better job of, quote, educating you so that you are, quote, more informed as to what you're voting on, that way you vote the way that they want you to vote, maybe that'll work. And maybe there will be a significant enough portion of the population that's like, you know what? I didn't realize all that information that they're providing me was something that was going to happen and be wonderful, so I've changed my mind. But I think that when it comes to convention centers, and here's the double-edged sword, I think, as well. On one hand, saying, hey, you don't have to worry about it. Visitors are going to pay for it with this tax. But at the same time, it's like, if it's for the visitors, do I really care? What difference does a convention center mean to me? And while, again, I understand there will be arguments made about, well, because it brings these people in. And then those people, they go to restaurants and they buy things. And I get that. But I'm just talking about average, everyday people. And I think sometimes we overthink why it is that these things pass or they don't pass. We particularly if we are in the industry or we're a professor, see, we can't look at things simply, just that simple, because we're educated, and so we have to understand things on a level other people don't. But sometimes it's just as simple as people like, you know what, I don't really think that that needs to happen. And even though it's not me paying the taxes, it is an additional tax on a business that does have to be passed on to the consumer, and the consumer's rights. I don't know. I think that maybe most people just thought we don't need a convention center, we don't need the tax burden, and they at the same time recognized that when that money runs out, then whose money do they come for in order to continue running the thing? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Fluctuating temperatures, they can be brutal on your roof, especially if you have an older roof or a roof that was improperly installed. And we've seen quite a few days over the last couple of weeks where the temps are bouncing around, from the 40s and then back up into the 70s the next day. And when the weather jumps around from one extreme to another, that causes your shingles to shift. And that's when moisture can seep in between, and that causes nail pops and decay to your decking. If it's been a while since you've had your last roof inspection, reach out to Josh today. The Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, and they work with you through the insurance process without making you sign anything. And they always use high quality materials, and they always go above and beyond, especially when installing certain things like ice and water shield. If it's time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com. What?
Oh, no, I was just looking at the clock here. There was an interview on Fox News with Harris Faulkner, and it was a sit-down with Jonathan Alpert. He is a psychotherapist, and they were discussing just the increasingly observed mental health of people on the left and how this actually truly is for people on the left. And something Michael Savage always said, liberalism is a mental disorder, and how that really clinically is becoming the case. And here he is talking about those people on the left that have Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, and Trump is the trigger for many of these people. And to be that fixated on a figure, on a person, it's simply not healthy. And our country has strayed so far away from where we once were. If you look at in the 80s when President Reagan was shot, people were united. He famously said, "I hope you're all Republicans," to the surgeons. And the response was, "Today, Mr. President, we're all Republicans." But our country has lost that. We've strayed so far from that unity.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see? Because you told me off camera 3/4 of your patient load right now has what you're calling this TDS?
Well, 3/4 of my patients will present with a lot of these symptoms, and within probably 5 minutes of seeing me, their hatred for Trump comes up. So if you're that hyper focused on Trump, that's a real issue, and it's worth being treated.
And the thing is, it's spread beyond just Trump to anyone who disagrees with them. Fetterman is a great example of this. He was doing an interview recently, and he said, and I was a politician. He has people on social media and sending emails from the right who call him names. He said, but people on the left, they don't just call him names, but they say things like his doctor should be killed for saving his life and going after his kids and wishing death upon him. And this is an illness that we continue to see. And unfortunately, the Democrat Party fans the flame. They know that these people suffer from this psychological condition, and that's why they keep fanning the flames. Here's more from the psychotherapist on these people with Trump derangement syndrome.
It doesn't take long for me to pick up on this. People are obsessed with Trump. They're fixated. They're hyper fixated on Trump. And they talk about some of the features of this disorder. They can't sleep. They feel traumatized by Mr. Trump. They feel restless. I had one patient who said she couldn't enjoy a vacation because anytime she saw Trump in the news or on her device, she felt triggered. So this is a profound pathology, and I would even go so far as to call it the defining pathology of our time.
Unfortunately, what is occurring in many of these instances is instead of noting, okay, I understand that you've got to, first off, you need to get away from the social media. You need to get away from all this stuff that is causing it. But grounding these people in reality, much like when you hear voices, making sure they understand those voices aren't there, making sure Trump isn't actually Hitler. Instead of that, too often they sit on the couch and they get told, yes, Trump is Hitler, you're right, but we just have to help you figure out a way to navigate around it. So they feed into the problem instead of fixing it.